Welcome to the Expert Series from Selling Your Canadian Business. Our book lays out the expert team of advisors every Canadian business owner needs in their corner. This series brings those experts into the conversation, one at a time. Disclaimer: this series is for educational purposes only and is not professional advice. Always consult qualified professionals. Find our book and more resources at sellingyourcanadianbusiness.ca. Here is your host.
Hello, everyone. I'm David Prowse from the Shaughnessy Group, and welcome to another episode of the Expert Interview Series. And this is where we interview professionals who help business owners grow and eventually exit their business. Please check out sellingyourcanadianbusiness.com for lots of great resources if you're interested in improving your valuation or improving your chances for a successful exit. Our guest today is Jay Davis from CEO Partners and a member of the Fulcrum Group. Jay is a former ops executive for Volvo, Stanley Black & Decker, and a COO and CEO for fast-growing middle-market companies. Now, as an executive partner, he helps companies grow at a pace they didn't think was possible, transforming tribal knowledge into plays and playbooks. The playbooks scale and grow companies in a repeatable and sustainable way. He's lived in 3 different countries and worked in more than 50. He has seen a lot and helps companies find the right path for them. And he's also a co-host on the People Are Business podcast, which you can find on YouTube. So Jay Davis, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, David. Glad to be here.
Excellent. So Jay, tell us a little bit more about who you are and how you got to where you are today.
All right. I'm a good old Ontario boy, grew up in London. Not smart enough to go to Western University, so I went to another one, Windsor. Had a great time. After university, I started on the front line as a construction worker. I was a roofer. Heavy bundles, great tan, great money. And then I got a break with General Motors to be the division ergonomist in London. And basically what I did was I watched people work and then helped to design the environment so the employees wouldn't get hurt. So when I was doing that, they realized that I applied a science to this process. And they also realized that as I was doing this, the employees were getting more efficient. And they watched me in meetings and they saw me do the same thing. They watched me see how decisions were being made, seeing if the people were involved, and they watched me do that. And then, I don't know how it happened, but I was identified as a high potential employee, which meant they were going to throw me into jobs I was clearly not qualified to do. But they said, well, don't worry about it. Your team leadership capabilities will be strong enough. And I'm like, are you sure about that? Like, I'm glad you have that confidence, but I don't really have that confidence. But they threw me into these jobs regardless. Operations, engineering, labor relations. And they also sent me back to school. So I was a little bit smarter than I thought, and I got an MBA from Indiana, and I got a Master's of Science in Lean Manufacturing from Kettering University in Michigan. And I was very fortunate. Lots of different jobs, academically grown. And then I finally left GM because Volvo headhunted me. And they saw, I guess, the same things. And then my career ride got steeper. And I had no intentions of ever being an executive. I just like to wake up in the morning and do good things, do things with teams that they never thought they could do. But things got busier. So I was director of operations, vice president, president of Volvo Construction Equipment Canada, and then vice president global operations at headquarters. Still kind of dealing with small type of facilities, but just more of them. There's 21 of them. And through all this, my role really didn't change a lot. I valued the front line. I'd still go watch people work. I'd watch them make decisions in meetings. I grew the bottom line by helping teams do things they never thought they could do. And that really was my corporate life. And I was very fortunate. I say to some people, there's 2 words that describe I was unqualified in most of the jobs I think I got thrown into. At least I thought I was. And I was sometimes oblivious. Oh, you're dealing with an organization in Mexico that is on the news, but not for good reasons. Well, I was kind of oblivious to that, and I just focused on the person I was talking with, and we got stuff done. So,
So sort of a trial by
unqualified,
fire.
yeah, unqualified, oblivious, um, but I valued the front line and I grew the bottom line by building bridges. So that's kind of what I do, what I do now. I help lower to middle market companies do that.
Excellent. Now, you said the path of growing a business profitably is very similar to the things that you have to do if you're thinking about doing an exit. So, why is that? And why is it important for business owners to make that connection?
Well, yeah, it's not this or that. It's not black or white. I kind of look at a company in two ways. There's two buckets. The first bucket is running the business, which is about making the day, making the week.
Yeah.
The second bucket is about improving the business, which is about making your trends, quarterly, yearly trends. Are you getting better and growing? So when you break that down into those two areas, and you start to focus first on making it easy to make the day with routines and rhythms, KPIs, connected teams, that then helps you grow. You grow your capacity immediately. You make more money immediately. Oh, yeah. If you want to sell the company in years to come, the buyer's going to come in and look for a platform where it's easy to make the day. Well, if you've got hardwired and systems in place to make it easy to make the day, they're going to give you a higher multiple. It really is that simple. The other bucket is then about improving the business. And improving the business, if you've got a platform that helps to stabilize and run the business, then on top of that, you can put a bucket on improving the business. And you're improving the business to either make more money or to sell the business at a higher multiple. So the paths are very similar between the two. There are some additional things for sure that you do on selling the business, but the multiple or the profits, they're heading in the same direction.
And I know
So
from
that's
my own, yeah, I know from my own experience that, I've studied a lot about, value creation, and, one of the exit planning methodologies that I use is sort of what we call the value acceleration methodology, and it's really about doing all the same things that that are going to create value for that particular business, and whether you want to have a successful business and run it forever, or you're looking to exit it. I mean, all those same precepts still apply.
right. And there's a lot of different systems. There's the Volvo operating system, there's the Danaher operating system, there's the Toyota production system, there's EOS, value creation. Those systems have many different elements and can seem complex, but I kind of put them into two buckets. Either they're helping to build the platform to make the day, make the week, and make it routine and easy, or they've got tools, lean manufacturing, Six Sigma, whatever, to help improve the business. But using those systems, at least what all of them are trying to do is they're trying to hardwire. They're trying to hardwire the first bucket, and they're trying to hardwire the second bucket so that an owner or a new buyer can run the business without the buyer for 4 to 6 weeks. I mean, that's a great test, right? Is when the buyer or the owner can leave, the CEO can leave for 4 to 6 weeks and it runs. That's a great test.
Yeah, for sure. So if you were like, in that space where you're 3 to 5 years away from an exit and from an operational perspective, what are some of the things that maybe a business owner should start thinking about today?
Oh, well, I would say that I'm going to use that dirty word process. And I think the challenge with using that word is process doesn't help owners win sometimes. It doesn't give me that, oh, I'm going to win. So I'm going to say work on plays and playbook. So if you're working on the first bucket, which is around building that platform, ask yourself whether or not you've got a clear escalation protocol from the front line to the top line. How do the people know when to escalate as compared to when to solve and keep solving? So create that escalation protocol so it makes it easy to understand when people escalate and when they don't. So that is one example of how to build your platform about, running the business and making the day. There are many other elements that I would work on as well. Escalation protocol, delegation of authority, what authority levels are you giving them? Meetings that start from the floor and then they move up to the executive in a connected way, connected where the KPIs are hardwired into those different meetings, and there's a clear purpose in those meetings. That clarity of purpose and KPIs allows the meetings to be done in 15 minutes. If it's daily, half an hour tops. If it's weekly, you start to look for those things first, I would say, because they provide stability. And then you start to think about, okay, what is something that's not improving that we'd like to improve? And then pick one. Establish what the missions is. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to take that hill? Or are you going to try and take that hill?
Right.
Tell me what the mission is, and then focus on a measurement method, a number, which will tell me if I successfully took the hill. So that's kind of in 3 to 5 years, I'd be focusing on the base, the platform, on how you run the business, and then I'd also kind of move into an improvement playbook.
Yeah.
As to you've got a playbook on how you're going to identify what to improve, and you've got measurements that knows if you improved or not.
Yeah. So you know what you have to do in the timetable, etc.
Yeah, exactly. But if a buyer is looking at that, they're like, nice. They got a good stable platform. The firefighting, there's firefighting, but it's easy.
Yeah.
It's no different than firefighters at a hall. It's not chaos to them. It's very easy. They hear the alarm, they get out of bed, they go down the pole, they get their boots on. It's easy.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to belittle, but there's a play and there's a playbook that they go
Sure.
by. Yeah.
So you've seen lots of issues over the day. What are the biggest operational issues, right off the bat that might have a negative impact on either, how valuable a business is or how efficient it runs?
Well, I think it's a little bit psychological in the sense that some of the operational issues are very much related to the psychological orientation of the leaders. And if they are hero orientated, that usually is tribal and it's reactive. If they're team orientated, it's usually related to plays, playbooks, and responsiveness. And so I think the biggest operational issue is that if you've got a culture of hero, then you got to move that culture, and you've got to help them understand the value that they can still have a superpower. They have superpowers. They're not going to lose their superpowers,
Yeah.
but we're going to put it inside of a team so that the team can leverage that superpower, and it's not a hero type approach.
Yeah.
So that's a very strategic type of look. Of course, you take a look at the on-time delivery. Usually, first and foremost, and then from there you can understand why it's not being delivered on time, whether it be absenteeism, inventory, turnover, safety, quality issues. But usually it's kind of, you look at the delivery first and then you kind of back it up.
So I know you've talked a lot about routines, rhythms, and meeting cadence as being really important. Why is this simple discipline so important if you're a business owner looking to kind of segregate yourself from the business?
Well, it's just you will improve and then you will slide right back to where you started.
Yeah.
So if you don't have the routines and rhythms and the meeting cadence in place, you will not hold your gain. It's really that simple. Yeah, you wanna hold what you gain.
How should owners think about continuous improvement? So I'm thinking about things like Kaizen or process discipline. Why is that important for a business owner?
Well, it just comes back to anybody can run the business. You run the business for 30 years, for 40 years. You rely on repeat business. And then all of a sudden the economy takes a tank and you're like, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. Well, why am I in trouble? Well, because I relied on repeat business for 40 years. Well, what about new business? Well, maybe I need to kind of look at new business. You betcha. And then that's kind of like when it's like, well, what's the improvement that's needed in the organization to look at new business? And the way I look at continuous improvement is the umbrella. And underneath the umbrella are so many different tools you can use. Kaizen, Lean, Six Sigma, line balancing. There are so many different tools to use. The focus isn't really around how sexy the tool is and things like that. It's around identifying the initiative and going back to what is the mission?
Right.
And am I taking that hill or that hill? And a lot of companies don't spend the time on defining what the mission is.
Yeah.
And then it's important to apply a measurement method, a number.
Yeah.
Give me an equation in which I can hardwire and know whether or not I was successful in the mission. It's not easy to do that. It's really hard. And often teams or companies say, okay, I'm done with that. I mean, for goodness sake, we just got to get on and improve. Stop messing around with the mission and the equation. We just got to do it. We all know what we got to do. It's like, okay, fine. So then you move on and they move on to the continuous improvement. And then it goes on and on and on. And it's like, yeah, you didn't set your goalposts.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's not it. It's because so and so didn't do their job right. Well, that's because it wasn't so clear on the scope and the goalposts.
Yeah.
So set your goalposts with measurements that are not influenced by other missions.
Yes.
Set your goalposts, hardwire your equation so that you know this is how I'm going to measure this mission.
Yeah. And you have to have a sense of what the big picture is, because you
Yeah.
can do continuous improvements, but if you're doing continuous improvements just randomly because you don't know what the big picture is, you don't really know where the end point is going to be.
Yeah, and so this is where it's that measurement method. Identify a measurement that will only relate to the mission, as in take that hill. Okay,
Yeah.
I know I've took that hill when I've got 10 soldiers on top of that hill and they're not shot in the last 5 minutes. And then helping the regiment understand, hey, yeah, we take that hill, you guys take that hill, so-and-so takes this hill and this hill, we win the war.
Right.
So that's kind of around, tying it together, right? You got to tie it to the bigger picture, but tie it to revenue or tie it to a cost, tie it directly to the financials up at the top.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do and it takes time. But once you do it, the team runs at a pace that will be faster than you imagined.
Yeah. We talk a lot about key performance indicators or KPIs, and what are some of the from your
Mm.
perspective the best KPIs that maybe from an operational perspective a business owner should think about?
Yeah, so I learned this. I mean, they pounded this into me many, many years ago. Um, there are 5 categories, and they're in this order. And they're in this order because they're in this order, and that's what you should never forget. It's like, aye, got it. So the first category is people.
Yeah.
Absenteeism and turnover rates. Why is that first? Because if your people don't come to work, it doesn't matter. So most companies do not look at absenteeism and don't talk about absenteeism or training the way they should. They actually don't talk about it.
Yeah.
The next category is safety. Once you get them to come to work and you have very, very low absenteeism and low turnover, you care about making it safe. You don't want them to get hurt. Most companies do have that in place. They're missing the people side, but they do have the safety in place. The next one is quality. And quality comes before delivery because I was taught you don't want to ship crap. If you ship crap, you won't get repeat business.
Yeah.
So your quality better be good. Most companies don't measure the quality at the level that sometimes is needed. But in Canada in general, Canada quality is fairly good. So what most companies do though, is their first measurement that they measure is delivery on time. So usually most companies have covered safety, delivery, and sometimes quality.
Yeah.
The last one is cost. This is where most companies do not measure a cost element that they could. And the simplest one to measure is overtime. You can count that on a daily basis, but most companies think, oh no, the cost is too complex. Overtime. Hey, supervisor, how many employees worked overtime? Oh, I don't know. Okay, so tomorrow I'm going to ask the same question. Okay, no problem. Hey, how many people worked overtime? Well, 2 of them did, Jimmy and Bobby. Okay, how much time? An hour each. Okay. Is that in the budget? I don't know. So honestly, you can kind of move that discussion along in a non-threatening way. So there's 5 categories. I'd say that people and cost are probably the operational KPIs that, you know, companies don't measure.
Yeah.
That if they did, they're going to differentiate themselves from their competitors.
Well, and being an accountant by background, I definitely believe in tracking costs and being able to forecast your costs and having a good understanding of what's going on, because you think about what's going on today with like supply chains and inflation. Having a grip on what's going on with your costs and expenses is really critical, I think.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny though. It is last, so it goes people first, because if you don't have people, it doesn't matter.
No.
Safety second, quality, you don't want to ship crap. Deliveries for cost is the last, and the way they taught it to me was the customer could care less how much it's going to cost you. So if you sacrifice and put cost first or second, you're not going to have to worry about repeat business because you're not getting any. So cost comes at the end, but generally, if you are green or in good shape on people, safety, quality, and delivery, guess what? Your cost is usually in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
Sometimes not, because over time, but not bad. And then if you met all 5 of those, your profit is good.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What are
So I
some
was
of the
taught
main
I was taught that early on.
Yeah, what are some of the main differences in organizations? Like some of them are mainly focused on serving existing customers, and they're kind of, not really growing too fast. And then there's others who are very high growth and they're always seeking out new customers. So how does that differ, like from an operational perspective, how you deal with it?
Well, Yeah, I think majority of the companies rely on their repeat business muscle.
Yeah.
It's gotten really big over the last 30, 40 years, and they've let go of the new business type muscle. Um, some of the companies that have let go of that muscle, their sales organization is mostly focused on repeat business. And that's where you got to retrain them on, hey, repeat business comes if operations does a great job in delivering on time, good quality at the right at the agreed upon price.
Sure.
So operations is really more responsible for repeat business than the sales organization. Yes, the sales organization, if they have customer service, has a little bit of something to do with it, but this is around looking for looking to orientate the sales organization and the product development organization into developing new products for the market, which is new business, or looking for new customers on the existing products and refocusing. If they used to spend 50% of the time on repeat business, say, okay, I appreciate that, but I got to move you of thinking about 90% of the time on new business, hunt. And that's a hard conversation to have because, again, some companies have relied on the repeat business, but usually you'll find hunters inside the organization that have that mindset. Rejection is, they love rejection. I hate rejection. I get I get issues.
Yeah.
So, but some people love rejections, and those people are hunters.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I try and assess their revenue type, health, and then be empathetic that, you know, doesn't mean you get rid of people. It just means you kind of orientate people towards the BD and the hunter type activity.
Sure. Now, Jay, we've both seen situations where business owners are way too involved in the day-to-day operations of the business. So, how do they go develop a leadership structure and accountability system to kind of remove themselves from the business, the day-to-day part of it?
Yeah, so I think one of the things you can do is help to relieve their biggest concern. And their biggest concern sometimes is people say, you have to let go. You can't control. And I kind of turn it a little bit different. I say, you are going to continue to control. You are just going to do it in a lot less time and a lot less energy. So you will not lose any control, but the amount of time it takes you to understand where your company is at and the health of it is going to be so much faster. And so my next then question is, or not question, but then I'll say, this is where now we need to work on. When we free up your time, what are you going to do? You can go into operations and you can dig into the daily basis, but that's running. You already know that control, and you've got decision makers kind of running that. However, if you first started the business, more than likely your superpower was business development and relationships. So we're going to maybe kind of move you back with the extra time you have is go find new business.
Mhm.
Like, that's your superpower. That's how you started off.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't and you don't love doing that now, that's fine. Help other people learn how to do it.
Yeah.
So I find it's a psychological component you have to address,
Right.
but I try and help them understand you're not going to lose control. It's just going to take a whole lot less time and energy to understand what control you have. And even if that's not completely accurate, I don't care. Because if you continue to tell the owner or operator, you got to let go, you got to let go, you got to let go. Yeah, that doesn't work so well sometimes.
Well, it's a big mind shift, right?
And you have to help them, see other areas to work on,
Yeah.
but you also have to help them. This is their baby. So you're going to have control, but it's just going to be so much easier. And then you can shift from there to other people having control. So you don't kind of throw them off the cliff from control to no control.
Yes.
You got to help them understand that there's a path.
Yeah, for sure. One final question. So you come into companies as a fractional COO. How do you determine who are the right people for the right positions?
Well, in my life, I've only fired 2 people in my whole career. One was an executive who was combative and abusive to the employees. The other one was unfortunately an alcoholic, and the union said you need to fire him. And I said, why? Why don't we help him? And they said, no, he needs to hit bottom before he's going to be motivated to change.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I totally agreed on it, but I respected that they had done this way more than I had. So normally what I do is I look for, in the organization, everyone's got a superpower and they got a blind spot. I look and try and identify what their superpowers are. And if I see somebody over here that is on repeat sales and their superpower is actually BD and talking to people and hunting, then I'll say, I'll talk with the owner operator and say, hey, that person's got some skill sets that may be really good on hunting and new business development. That's their superpower. So usually I try and look for superpowers and then move them into their roles according to their superpowers. At some point, we then transition to talk to people about their blind spots. And I usually use that by looking at myself, and I share with them. I'll say, my superpower is this. Here's my blind spot. As soon as I start using those 2 words, other people start using those words, and they start to recognize that everyone's got blind spots. And so help that person, don't beat on them and say this is their weakness. It's a blind spot.
Sure.
But understand and respect their superpower.
Sure.
And then that's when the conversation gets easier to figure out, yeah, that's superpower. Like I'm working with one client now, clear their superpower is some relationship stuff. It's like, okay, let's move them over. Right.
Jay, thank you very much for this conversation. It's been very enlightening.
Thank you.
We'll have to bring you back again in the future because I think that there's so much that we can take a deep dive on. But I think this was a wonderful conversation. So thanks to everyone out there for watching us today. Please go to sellingyourcanadianbusiness.com. We'll give you some information on how you can contact Jay if you want to. And remember to go to his podcast as well, which is People Are the Business Podcast, which is on YouTube. Thanks very much, Jay, and everyone out there. Thanks. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, David.
That concludes this episode of the Expert Series from Selling Your Canadian Business. This conversation is for educational purposes only and is not professional advice. Always consult qualified professionals. Click on any of the additional resources on screen or visit sellingyourcanadianbusiness.ca. Thank you for joining us.